Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Through a Therapist's Eyes, where I like to say you get personal insights directly from a therapist in your own home or personal time in your car, rediscovering emotions and becoming your best self. That book I wrote, man, do you believe I wrote a book? Is that crazy, you knowing me in a different way? That's scary, isn't it?
No.
He doesn't know what to say.
No.
See the world through the lens of a therapist, but be aware this is not the delivery of therapy services in any way. I know I do that to people. Let me see. We are really looking to grow with you, man. We're not ready to make an announcement about it, but we've got some cool things that we're going to be doing kind of in the next few weeks, I guess. Few weeks is what we talked about. Really got excitement out of what you're going to enjoy, I think, with our logo and some different things that we're trying to pop out. We got new things with Facebook Lives and cameras and YouTube and video and all this kind of stuff, so why stop there? We're going to add to it. So that's coming up. Stay tuned. This is the human emotional experience. We do endeavor to figure this thing out together. Find us out on contact@throughatherapisteyes.com. We are on Apple iTunes. Join us on the Facebook group. That's a good way to stay in touch with these new things coming out, and also the email list that we don't kill you with emails, but what we got coming up, I think you'll enjoy kind of staying in tune with that, and you can see the show titles and the things that we got coming out, I think, with that. So I'm going to take it easy on you today, man. We're going to back it down on the meaty, crazy psychological stuff that we did before, man. Did you ready to talk about some parenting things? Is that more in your wheelhouse?
That's definitely my season of life right now is the parenting stuff.
Yeah, and what would you be willing to say the age of your kids? I think we asked you that.
Yeah,
that before.
No, I've got my oldest is 12, boy, then a girl, she's 9, and another boy, 7.
12, 9, and 7. Yeah, that is right in the middle of everything going on.
Yeah.
How's middle school treating you?
Yeah, we've got challenges. Overall, my son's a champ. He can handle whatever challenge is thrown at him.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just there as a added benefit. Just
yeah, he's a good kid. We met him here. He hung out with us once when we recorded.
Sure did.
You remember that?
Yeah. I think he wrote on one of the walls over here. So
yeah, he kind of had a corkboard incident.
Still left his mark on it.
His mom was quite upset. Her like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "It's you know what? I don't even use the corkboard. It is fine." So we got a lot to get to. We're gonna talk about how to and what to filter for your kids, and we're gonna go through a lot of different angles of that because there's a lot of questions and a lot of different things we're gonna try to tackle. And by no means do I think we're going to be able to be totally conclusive on the and right off the get-go, I got a current event that I want to do too and look at, but right off the get-go, I want to really say, listen, parenting is hard, and there are no hard and fast rules really of things that you have to really subscribe to, maintain, or do. There's a lot of gray in a lot of this. That's what I believe. There are very few things like safety issues, suicide, drug use kind of things. Those types of things are pretty easily, not many people would differ with what you kind of want to do. But a lot of the things we're going to talk about, Matthew, tonight, I really want to make the point out the get-go that, like, look, these are suggestions. These are ideas. No one can really give you, any therapist or any doctor, we can't really give you, hey, you got to do this kind of a thing. Does that actually sound surprising, Matthew, when I say that? Because being, we work with kids, we're supposed to be psychologically sound and grounded and know the best methods for everything, right? Does that sound surprising that I would say that? I'm curious.
I think it just goes to the idea that it's more of an art than a science at times, and it depends on the child. I mean, you can have people, like with me, 3 children, or talk to those who are further down the road than I am, and 5, 6 children, and they'll tell you what worked for one doesn't work for the next.
My second kid is way different than my first kid.
And that's with the same parents, the same upbringing, in the same house, the same culture, the whole bit, and what worked for one does not work for the next.
Exactly.
So
I've gotten a little bit more screwed up in my older age, so the first kid probably got the better of me, but, that's a joke. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The firstborns always get the absolute best effort.
Yeah,
After that, it's downhill.
yeah. Poor first child syndrome, man. The oldest child, man. They really get it hard, don't they?
Yeah.
They have to beat the parent down
Yeah.
so we can relax.
Yeah.
I was the second born. Where were you?
Oh, I'm first.
Your firstborn, yeah, man. And you got all the hardcore, got to have the right nutrition, got to have the right bedtime, got to make sure it's monitored and checked and he's safe. And then the second kid, it's like, all right, you're good, man.
Anything goes.
Time you get to the third, fourth kid, you don't even have any pictures. You got no pictures in there.
Maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah, a couple. So let's rap about a topic that I think is pretty serious, and I wanted to do a current event on it. Y'all have probably heard a lot of the things going out about social media and misinformation, even a little bit all this cancel culture that people are kind of dealing with. I mean, I know it seems like mass hysteria out there a little bit. I wanted to do my little part in addressing a little bit of that when it comes to misinformation, because I listen to, y'all know I like Science Versus. It's a cool podcast out there. Hey, we ought to get a promo on their deal, don't you think? How many times
like
I've
you
mentioned
should.
it? I need to email them people, Neil. Let's get on that, right? Now I got a new one though. Adrian turned me on to it, and I'm flopping on the name. Universe. Well, I just said it to you earlier. What was it? Strangers to the Universe or something.
I don't know. I missed what you said.
It's going to be in my new science podcast. You'll see why in a minute. So Rogan's in hot trouble. Joe Rogan. You ever hear of this guy?
I think everyone's heard of Joe Rogan.
So he had a
For
interview.
those who haven't.
What's that?
For those who haven't.
Yeah. Well, he's got an awesome podcast show called Joe Rogan Experience, and it's a 3-hour show that he does excellent job in a lot of ways, but he got in a lot of hot water about an interview that he did with a doctor named Dr. Malone. I think it was Robert Malone. Anyway, the hot water is that people are really upset about the misinformation that went on and the chaos that ensued with vaccines and all these things that through the pandemic. And I really wanted to do my part of being on Spotify ourselves. The folks at Science Versus really felt a lot of responsibility to address it because they are a science show, and they are also exclusively, I think, produced and in the same situation as Joe Rogan's being on, their platform, and they're pretty concerned about the science piece of it. What I want to do, I'm not going to do anything like not make any shows or cancel anything out. I think we all need to be able to talk. But I do want to point out the big concern that I have with it. And Neil, you listen to the show, so we're going to wrap a little bit maybe for just a minute on this, and then we'll get to our topic tonight. The flash factor that people have, right? The flash factor that people are looking for I and trying to get controversial guests and this type of a thing. I want to kind of say, first of all, I won't do that on this show. That's not what I'm into. If I never make it as big as I want to be because of that, so be it. I could do all kinds of things with transgender stuff and sex addiction thing and sex this and sex that and whatever. Like I want to really kind of sort of highlight that's not what we're about. We're about disseminating information about mental health and blowing up stereotypes and stigmas and stuff. So I'm really concerned about how we do have this phenomenon. That's the biggest beef that I have. And I'm not saying Joe's doing that. I don't know the guy. I don't know his show. I've only listened to a few of them. I wish I had time to listen to more. But that's something that I really want us as a culture to begin becoming aware of, to be concerned about, that's really a disservice, and whoever might be doing that, we need to stop that, and we need to filter that out so that we ourselves can take into account what we're listening to when you get all excited about some big anger thing or some big, dramatic, fight that I mean, we're no better than high schoolers in some ways, where you sit there in a circle, fight. Us adults get so interested in that as well, and it works. Facebook's algorithms are built that way, I understand. So that's the big thing that I wanted to kind of address. And the other is And Neil, I don't know if you heard the difference on science versus as you listen to it, the difference between anecdotal information and then, the science that we look for to learn about. Did you pick up on how they talked about that?
I remember hearing about the anecdotal, but you might have to elaborate a little bit more about exactly. Because I know, they went over a lot of the scientific research and results, but I'm not sure. Anecdotal is a weird term for me, so you might have to elaborate a little bit.
So they pointed out a lot of cherry picking in information that people will use. That was one big factor. And again, the clickbait kind of thing that I'm concerned about, that I wanted to point out just from an emotional mental health standpoint as a concern. The other is anecdotal information is essentially, hey, my buddy experienced this. This must be what COVID does. And that's not really accurate. It's so random. And, we'll get a lot of misinformation done that way through just anecdotal experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And you I think you hit the head. You see that a lot in social media because no matter where you come from, the emotional connection to how it affects you is what you then elaborate or you tell about. Because whether you're for or against vaccines, whether you're afraid or you're not afraid of COVID, the reality is someone has been affected by it or someone has not been affected by it, and you're going to have those anecdotal information, those stories of, I had these 3 relatives die and COVID is the worst ever, but then you have other people like, my whole family had no problems. And you have to look at the whole picture, and that goes back to what you're saying. You don't want to cherry pick one small subset. You need to get all the information, and that's what I told you before the show. I wasn't a big fan of the podcast because there were some things I personally didn't like about the show, but I loved the fact that they did come across with information about studies, information about research, and they came across with the facts. And that's what we all need to do when we hear something that we either want to jump onto because we agree with it or something that we hate because we don't agree with it. It goes back, you have to take a step back and say, is that really right? And what is the information behind it? What's backing it? So
psychologically, we have begun to find out that even in our school systems with our kids, somewhere I saw this, it may have been a science versus, frankly, sadly, children are not able to discern, reading a paragraph, which sentence represents a fact and which sentence represents an opinion, or I would throw in there anecdotal information. People in adulthood, I'm going to submit to you, because of all of the strong attitudes that we have flying around, struggle with that as well. It's another mental health reality.
Do you think part of that is because we have so much information we don't have time to really process it?
I think that's probably part of it.
Because you think about it, if you watch anything, you get so much stuff thrown at you, like your brain is like, which one sounds the best? As opposed to thinking like you read a newspaper and then you can think about it. And then you finally watch the evening news and you have time to think about it. Where here it's like you get on Facebook and you just scroll through any social media platform. You have 100 articles giving 100 different opinions.
Yeah.
And you just seem to pick the one you like the best and you stick with that, as opposed to using your, rationing or rationalizing what's right, what's wrong, what's fact, what's opinion, what's...
People struggle with that.
And I see that as a huge issue nowadays.
And I'll tell you, the last thing I'm going to put on this, where we get, false information that grows from, is another psychological mental health reality. And you didn't listen to the show, Matthew. That's why he's being quiet. Chime in if you want. But there is a very, very strong dynamic of groupthink. So I'm not sure if this is Joe's theory as well. Anyway, a friend told me that it was, but I don't know. He kind of believes that there's actually 20% of the people on the alt-right. Now we say woke right, I guess. And there's 20% of the people on the woke left. It used to be alt-left, right? And we just create new terms. I love our language. And there's 60% of the people left in, or 60% of the people left in the middle that are too afraid to make a lot of statements because of the loudness of those people on the fringes. But what I want us to understand from a mental health perspective, what really happens, and I think a lot of what's happening with this, is groupthink. We know when we're running therapy groups or mental health groups and things, there will be groupthink that begins to develop. You hear a theme, you hear a thought, and you tend to gravitate towards that, whichever one is the loudest. And so I think what's really happening in this misinformation age, when you get this sexy kind of stuff on the airs that you gravitate to, is that's probably been true in 1990 or early 2000s. 20% on the right, far, 20% on the left, far. But that 25 turns into 30, and then 35 pretty quickly. And in the schism that we have nowadays, what you're left with is like 40, 40, and 20 in the middle, I'm afraid. Now, this is not scientific, but that's what I see happening because of a basic thing that I see in my therapy groups called groupthink. It's a well-established human behavior that I'm afraid we're falling into because, like you say, there's so much loudness and a lot of information that gets flying out there. So I think we got to be really careful about that. And all in all, we're learning how to incorporate this really new stuff in the world into our daily lives, like Spotify. So we're just figuring it out. I don't know. Does that all make sense? Closing thoughts here, and we get to our stuff.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Check it out. Check out the podcast. It'll be in the show notes, so you can listen to it yourself and make your own opinion.
There you go. Absolutely. So, how to and what to filter for your kids. This is something that I get a lot of questions about, and Matthew, I guess we're both right in the middle of dealing with this in our lives with our own kids. Any broad stroked ideas in your mind when you caught wind of the topic and it's like, oh gee, what do we do with this? I mean, I've got really a lot of strong opinions, thoughts, confusion about it. When you hear the title even, what goes into your brain? And I didn't start the clock. How far in are we minutes wise? I need to know. 16. Thank you. So what kind of broad stroke thoughts did you have?
How to and what to filter for your kids. I mean, two different things there, but just the overall topic of filtering what your kids have access to. I think it was far easier to do once upon a time.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the biggest broad stroke that I can say is, let's say they have a laptop for school, or you have a tablet and your intent is for them to be able to play games, whatever. Well, even the advertisements for games, and you look at a game and it looks so innocent. There's nothing to it. It's just help them with some type of hand-eye coordination or
Tetris.
Some type of anything. And then all of a sudden an ad will pop up for a different game or a video that they need to watch. Like, what is this I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Or you look over the shoulder and you got to watch everything. And so all those are just
in 1922, it was way different in what you're filtering and what your kids are exposed to and whatnot. And I would argue to a certain extent, for better or for worse, really, I don't know which. You're not going to filter a lot out of what, nowhere near 100%, 80%, 60%, particularly as the kids get older. Mm-hmm. More and more limits do you have. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think you're right on point there. I want to start this show out today, though, with sort of maybe the end, and then we'll go through different areas of the kid's life. So what you're in for is understanding some broad factors that influence what you do and how you do with this filtering stuff. And then we're going to look about family dynamics. We're going to look about technology questions that people go to, and then the kids' social life as they go through socially, and then factors that influence how you make decisions about this and what it is that we're modeling. So first things first, understanding a lot of these factors that go into parenting relationships. Have you ever heard of Love and Logic?
I don't know that I have. Dude,
you should I would advise you to check it out. Episode 15, Craig and I went through the tenets of Love and Logic. Mm-hmm. I'm really, because I know we always struggle with time, and I'm not going to spend any time on it, but it's a mention, and go deep on episode 15 because it is by far the best thing that I've come across that changed the way that I look at my own relationship with parenting, and I lean on that a lot. It's just really good stuff. But another point here is that children have, so a major factor that we don't factor into, what do we need to filter from our children in today's day and age? The children's resiliency is huge. They're really way more resilient than we give them credit for. They can see bullshit and call that. And they can see healthy lessons and call that. They really, more and more as they get older and develop cognition with their development, dude, they're resilient creatures. They're not going to get crushed nearly as much as we think they're going to get crushed just because they see something or hear something. And I don't know that we give them that much credit. Does that sound surprising, Matthew?
It does to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, once they see something, they can't unsee it.
Right.
And they get exposed to things, and they can't unhear it. So, and, you know, if you, in a moment of weakness, you slip up and say what you didn't mean to say, or, you know, get in an argument and they heard things they shouldn't have heard. You know, I've always felt the opposite.
Yeah, that's going to happen. Kids hear all sorts of things. You think they're not hearing you when you're arguing in your room. Their ears pressed against the wall. They know. I mean, they know what's going on, and they can filter that out in their own mind, in their own psychology. I love the way Casey's got me thinking a lot. Did a show with her recently, a colleague here, and she's like, you know, you are inherently made in a certain way with your cognition, your brain, your spirit, your own relationship with your creator even. Like, you know, kids just the same as us as adults. I know there's developmental differences, but they have a huge amount of resources just as they're just made. It's amazing. And I think that we don't rely on that sometimes, or we diminish that sometimes just because they can't do algebraic equations yet. They're in the 7th grade. So I want to point out, and I know this is a real generalized statement, but they have a huge amount of resiliency that I don't think we give credit to. I hear a lot of times, thirdly here, the world is different now. And I always like to retort, yeah, but emotions really have stayed the same. Human emotional experience, that's what we endeavor to figure out together. How much different do you think the human emotional process is from 1732 compared to now? Fear, still fear. The amygdala, they still had them. Cortisol soaked through their bodies when they went to war with a sword. We do it with an AK-47. It's the human system changes so slowly that our emotions are really absolutely the same. Listen to a few of these and see if you have any comments, Matthew, or jump in as you need to. Kids need to fail. I know you agree with that. We've talked about it. Parents are so afraid of allowing their kids to fail, and we need to get over that. That's a huge factor in what do you filter, right? Manage your fear, guilt, shame-based feelings. I can't say it loud enough. If you parent out of shame, you're in trouble. If you parent out of fear, you're in trouble. If you parent out of guilt, you're in trouble as a parent, for real. That's a powerful one, I think. And that's definitely going to influence how you filter and what you filter. Encouragement works way better than what I tend to do, yell at my kids. I do. I'll own it. I wish I were more encouraging personally. You know, it works so much better. Like, I'll purposely try to find things that they do well. Sometimes I think that's a struggle. I'm just kidding. Not really. I don't know. Right? How encouraging are you? How much do you literally look for things they do well? That's a huge factor. Compassion also. We forget because we're 35 years old, 55 years old, and we're parenting our kids. This is tough stuff that they're feeling and going through. And how much you filter, or how you filter, especially with this one, how compassionate you are is going to make a big difference. And we tend to get real edgy. We're real tired. We're real frustrated. Relationship also is another essential component. And this is one of the things I love about the Love and Logic. If you think about how much you're developing a relationship with your child, as opposed to how you're doing as a parent, you'll be way ahead of the game. You've got to find, just like you do with your friends, just like you do with your spouse, you got to find things in common. You got to build a relationship. You got to have fun in the relationship, right? If you're focused on how is my relationship, you're going to be ahead of the game. Bottom line, the goal is to teach life lessons. That's what our role is. And that's emphasizes like, yeah, you really got to think about what you got to filter. This is important. You really got to think about how you do that. because you're really trying to accomplish your major goal and how awesome of a responsibility it is to teach life lessons to such a young spirit. And lastly, a theme that I would submit to you, to increase monitoring if there's a reason. Decrease monitoring if there's no reason, if there's no danger. And how do you interpret that danger? But when that reason resolves, decrease your monitoring. So again, let me say that clearly. Increase your monitoring if there's a reason. When that reason resolves, decrease your monitoring. I think that's a good guidepost. So I know I fired through a lot there. Which one stuck out, Matthew? Which ones do you have thoughts about? I'm feeling like I'm rambling.
I mean, I think the resilient part, and there's probably different sides of the coin there, whether or not they're resilient or how resilient they actually are. I've always viewed it, I don't really want to find out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just try to shelter them from a lot of the tough stuff in life.
Mm-hmm.
You want the best for your kids. So keep the bad stuff away and shower them with all the good stuff. That's the way I've always approached it.
Yeah, showering as much as you can. I would wonder, Matthew. Go ahead.
The failure piece. That you touched on about not being scared for your kids to fail.
Yeah.
Is a big one for me.
Yeah.
Because I just think there's so many lessons to learn.
Important?
No, I mean, I don't. If I had to do a self-assessment on it, I don't think it's really a struggle for me.
Okay.
I don't mind seeing them fail.
Yeah.
I like to, because that's a teaching moment, and I like to see them grow, and I want to see them advance and problem solve, and I think it gives them an opportunity for all those things. I noticed some of the emails back and forth. Let's say like school, for example, they get a low grade, and now we're emailing the teacher back and forth.
Okay.
I don't know that that's happened when I was in second grade, third grade, stuff like that. Maybe it did. It's a long time ago. I don't know how much the parental back and forth, was there even a such thing as email back
there wasn't email for sure, but there was. There was actually. I could tell you. I don't know if we have time for a funny story, but I had a certain F word that was on my sheet.
Oh boy!
In grade school, like fourth grade, man, and it went home and it had to be signed, and I created an awesome lie where I did. It was the word, but I didn't put the L and the N in the word, so I just missed a couple letters. I'm so sorry. That's what I said. They had to have seen through it.
Yeah, of course.
But here's the rub with that story. Mom, if you're listening to this, which she probably isn't, but I want to play this for her. I don't think I've ever told her this. I didn't write the word, Matthew. I don't know how I got on my sheet. I swear I did not do that. But I created that.
It was your subconscious.
It could have been. It could have been. It could have been. I know there's a lot there that I just went down, though. Does that feel overwhelming? Because I think parenting is overwhelming.
Well, parenting in general is. And you don't have any trial runs at it.
No.
It's just, you're just thrown right into the fire.
And it's always developmentally different at the different stages that the kid is in, too.
And it's kind of like the game of golf. If you ever feel like you've got a handle on it, just buckle up.
That is a great metaphor.
Because there's always an area of the game that you need to improve on. And if you feel like you did really good this time out, well, wait till next time, and you'll you'll feel as though you've never touched a golf club in the past.
And for those of you that don't know golf, I mean, you have to place your wrists in a proper way, your grips with your fingers, how their thumbs are pointed to each other, the angle of your feet, the width of your feet, the follow through, the swing. It is endless.
Even at the highest level, those guys are trying to get a grip on it.
Tiger Woods is working on his swing.
Every day.
How is he working on his swing?
It's all short game right now.
Short game. Actually, I think that he swung, didn't he? He's swinging again.
Yeah, but he's just still rehabbing that leg.
Yeah, he's not going to be competitive for a little while. If ever still. I think I heard that he wants to come back and play a few.
Of course he does. I learned a long time ago, don't count Tiger Woods. I don't know how we got on Tiger Woods. But I learned a long time ago, never, ever count that man out.
You brought up a golf metaphor, and it was an awesome one.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to parenting, because there is so much to it, and just one day you feel like, wow, I think I did really good. I give myself an A today as a parent. Wait till tomorrow.
It's a perfect metaphor. Yeah, and they're really, you hear so many things. This is why I think parent guilt. We did a show on parent guilt. As a matter of fact, Neil, if you would look that one up, I want to quote that in this episode because that's a really important one, I think, for this episode. And shame on me for not looking at it. Parent guilt is so strong and so devastating. It's so destructive. And you hear so much that you're supposed to be doing, so much that you're I don't know. Gosh. Parent guilt is just terrible. We did a whole episode on it.
And you're constantly feeling like you're running out of time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I thought about that. Like, there's only few short years, and he's out of the house. You know, my oldest.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
You know? And you think about all this. Is he ready for this situation? Is he ready for college, ready for his job, ready for whatever in life?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a panic.
Yeah, because there are so many life lessons, and you wish you could just program them to be ready for everything, and it's impossible.
What is it? 71. It is episode 71, Parent Guilt. That is a hugely important one in this conversation. So check that one out, too. I like to say these shows do build on each other, you know, because, again, if you're parenting out of guilt, if you're parenting out of fear, which we just both admitted, we parent out of fear there. That's a tough place to be in. You're struggling when that's happening. Mm-hmm. Fearless parenting. That sounds like a good title. That sounds like a really good title.
I'd enjoy coming back, being a part of that one.
Yeah,
that's a great title. But you think of all the categories in life. I mean, relationships, finances, business. You know, politics, life. I mean, just think about all of it. I was just thinking the other day, when's the last time I went camping with my son? Does he know how to tie a knot? Does he know how to start a fire? Does he know how to pitch a tent? Does he know how to clean a fish? You know, all the outdoor stuff. Like, man, I feel like I'm slacking in that area.
I'm failing.
But if I were to take a whole week and we just spend it in the wilderness somewhere, then I feel like, well, gosh, now I'm failing him in some other area. School. Or,
we didn't do homework, or we're not really on the point.
What about does he know how to write a check? Does he know how to operate on a budget?
Yeah.
What does it take to open a business and be
you know,
successful?
This is a good place to maybe go back to where that surprised you. This is a good place to really instill, stop the parent guilt, stop the fear, stop the shame, and realize that kid is going to figure, not some, all of those things out when he needs to. All of them, even fishing, how to bait a hook and, you know, clean the fish out. If he needs to, my gosh. As a matter of fact, here's a joke, but it's for real. These kids got Google, man. They got YouTube, and they know more than we know. How about that?
Well, talk about a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You know, they can learn whatever they want.
They can, and they
Which
do.
Is both good
people,
and bad.
Y'all, all of you, what do they call us?
Said you weren't
the old
Southern.
people.
The y'all came right out.
Huh?
You said you weren't Southern earlier. The y'all came straight out.
Yeah, man, it did, didn't it? That's scary.
Gave yourself away.
That's scary. They do know, and they do look, and they do research. Everyone out there needs to understand when you think, again, I don't know how much you can filter because they are so entwined in finding out what it is that they want to know. They'll find a way, and nowadays it isn't very hard. That's why you want to instill some of these other things that will end in the end with that you really want to kind of hit. But let's go through because we have a lot that we want to try to get to as we want to think about these different areas of life. People usually go to the technology questions. You know, what do we want to do, you know, to filter them? What do we want to do to monitor their game time and all that kind of stuff? And we've covered that on the show as well. Look at gaming and social media with kids. I think I did look that one up. Yep, episode 39, you know, when we looked at what happens with social media in kids. But basic thing there is it does create anxiety. That is an anxiety generator as a concern. You know, get your tweets, get your pops, get your snaps. You know, in fact, I don't know if your kids, where they're at. Do you know what what is it called when you get how many snaps you get in a day? Oh, my God, I've lost it. Neil, do you know what happens when you get? He doesn't know either. It's
a
escaping
badge?
my brain.
They get a certain badge if they get a certain number of snaps.
Things like that.
Okay.
Streak. It's a
Okay.
streak. And I got a 253 streak with my friend Ray.
Yeah.
That means you've been able to snap back and forth
Yeah.
253 times. And you have got to get, whether I'm grounded or not, or you've taken my phone away, Dad, you don't understand. I have got to get 255.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yes. There's another one different back in our day, streaking. Had a totally different meaning back in our day.
Do you have a fun story there?
No, I thought you may want to share one.
No, I actually have never. There's a lot that I've done. I've never done that. I think I'd have to think about it, but I think that's a true statement. Gaming can be strengths as well. I want to make that point out. It is not all bad. We're finding that actually has some applications in life with fine motor skills and that type of a thing. Sound crazy that gaming can be helpful for kids? Yeah.
Not to me, it doesn't.
It absolutely
No.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you fly in helicopters and stuff.
Well,
right?
through some of the military training, we did video game style simulations with weapons. I mean, go through certain scenarios and all, and it very much. I mean, you feel like you're in a video game.
Yeah.
And it's a big screen.
Virtual reality.
Yeah, it's all virtual reality. But the other thing that I want to mention there is Minecraft. The
Oh,
game
yeah.
Minecraft and
Creativity.
the most
amazing.
creative. They've built hotels. They've built dream houses. I mean, all types of, and they're operating collaboratively.
Yeah, that's the other thing I'm going to point out. Go with the collaboration.
So the collaboration point of it, they can be in different places in the world, whatever the case is, all connected, all working together. So it's communication, it's accomplishing a common goal, it's being creative together.
Breaking down cultural barriers. Ooh, how's that one? And it's true. Listen, there's a problem in not having face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball in the real-time personal relationship development. That's the big criticism. But people, I have had clients time in and time again literally make full relationships over what they've got with their friends online, and it has helped all kinds of things with anxiety and Asperger's kids and things like that. They socialize. That is their socialization, and that is not bad. It's not inherently bad. So, but there are concerns again with you've got to have FaceTime too in actual activities. Virtual school is another one. Real quick comment on here, and then school in general. What are you trying to filter out, and how are you trying to filter out with school? It's their grade, y'all. It's their grade, people. And sometimes we take a personal attack and account as a reflection of us, and that you got to guard against. But the technology thing that I'm just flying through here because we've covered it before and it's talked about more. You want me to get on a rant about virtual school?
Go for it.
Shall I rant
It's
here?
your show.
You've
You've built the platform.
It's not great. It gives me grave concerns in the way that people are learning exclusively with that, and I think that we all have seen that through the pandemic's experience that we really need to have that human contact in learning. It's just an essential developmental, social, and emotional reality that we need to have. It's not all bad. Please don't kill me on email and send all that to me because I know it has its values. It really has its values. Well, I've learned that, but boy, it gives me a little bit of shakes.
Well, you said exclusive.
Definitely.
Anyway, exclusively learning in that way.
Yeah.
So, not that there's anything too wrong with using it as a platform or a medium to learn, but you specifically said there exclusively.
Yeah. That's thank you for that, highlighting that, because when you're exclusively doing that, you're missing all of the social and emotional. I partied like a rock star when they took the exclusive virtual out and went ahead and did A, B days. Remember when we were doing that around here? It was A days were Mondays, Wednesdays, and whatever, and B days. I was so happy because oh great, then that teacher can look my kid in the eyeball. That's got to happen. That whole first year was nothing but virtual. Oh my gosh, nightmare. Absolutely nightmare. I see it with all my clients. They're just checked out. They were just checked out. So that's all I want to get with technology. Let's really get into family dynamics and then their social life to help us think about how and what do we really need to filter. And I think, Matthew, the way I want to do this is kind of read them, and then I want to go back through and see which ones stick out and which ones are surprising or you have thoughts about what the listening audience would be, and I'll put comments on them. So how do we filter, and what do we need to filter as it relates to family dynamics? Okay? We want to think, and this is just, by the way, my total brainstorms on these. I didn't Google anything or look at anything. This is just what came to me, and I'll give Casey another prop. I picked her brain, and we texted in a little bit together. Finances and budgeting. Okay, what do you filter? What do you not? Conflict in the home, right? Sexual activity. Ugh. Divorce. What do you filter? How do you filter that? Staying home alone. That's a big filter just in and of itself. When does that happen? When does it not? The Life's 360. I probably should have put that in technology, but I put it in family because it has a lot to do with family relationships. How much do you use that? How much do you not? Nutrition, as it relates to body image and things like that. How do you filter them out? Who owns what, I wrote. Like, how do you filter, the finances again a little bit, and who owns things? And a little tip there is I'm big on entitlement with kids. Aaron was on the show actually once, my oldest, and he made fun of me, but he understands it too because I've said it to him many times. Your mother and I own everything in this house, right down to that shirt you like to wear and the bed you sleep on. You're entitled when you get out and get on and get established, but that just helps to recommend and understand they can use it, they can go with it, they're welcome to enjoy the benefits and privileges that it is, but it's your mother's and I's. We never want to forget that. So what sticks out there in those, Matthew, and maybe we'll touch on the important ones that are in your mind?
Finances, I've never really thought in terms of filtering something
At all?
related to financing or finances. Might need a little more structure in our family when it comes to that. I noticed this past week there's a debit card, and you put in the child's photo goes on the card, but you can reward them with dollars on the card, and then they have their own card to spend. So that's pretty cool.
Venmo, man. It's Cash Apps and all this.
Mm-hmm. The who owns what, I guess we've taken an opposite approach on that. You said like you and your mom, or me and your mom own everything. You own nothing. We give gifts. We expect them. No, this is yours. You own it. I expect you to care for it. Keep up with it. Don't lose it. So it's not mine anymore. So that's an opposite approach that we've taken.
You're wrong. No.
Yeah.
I'm totally kidding.
Maybe.
Which is, let's use this moment like to demonstrate again, you aren't wrong. That was a joke, everybody. Because there aren't any immediate right answers here. Don't think you're wrong if you do that, or Matt's right and I'm wrong for that. There isn't. We have got to get away from that type of thinking. There are choices that you go, and what you're trying to do with those choices is what we really want to switch our brains to think about. Let's look at the finances since you pointed that out. There's some thinking there, that you want to kind of, and I said in the factors in the beginning, all the developmental things are important here. Little toddlers are different than teenagers, so it's always on the developmental level that the kid is at, and also the maturity level that differentiates one kid from the next. That's especially so with when do you leave a kid at home alone? Their maturity level and their developmental level is fine, but there are people that are afraid to leave their 14-year-old kid home alone. I'm like, geez, are you kidding me? He's going to be driving here in a minute, but yet you're still afraid to leave him home alone. Again, fear. If you're parenting out of fear, that's a concern. But finances, right? So there's a lot of fear that kids can have when they hear parental fights or battles or statements about financial distress, financial panic.
Okay. I see where you're coming from now,
right?
With the filtering piece.
And we're not really aware sometimes because we're just doing bills at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
But you can really, you got to be mindful of that a little bit because kids will really get in their mind not keeping up with the Joneses. They're actually geared towards, and I actually have had questions from my kids, Matthew. Are we okay, Dad? Are we okay? And I'm like, are we okay? Like, dude, we're comparably so, we're blessed, as they say in the South. We're fantastic. I know we don't feel wealthy.
Well, so for him to ask that, where's he?
I have no idea where he got it.
Did he conversation with a friend? Maybe they're struggling in their home.
Could be. Could have been that.
And then it makes him want to come back and ask you, hey. But maybe that's where it came from. You know, he heard a friend. He wants to come home. Hey, are we okay?
Yeah.
Here in this house, but I mean, part of that's maturing. I mean, at least the concept of money doesn't grow on trees. We'll try to get across that concept. So,
be
but
careful
he's asking the
to
question,
filter too much.
Because then they say, well, I never knew.
Yeah.
It took this to provide this and to pay for this. And
you have no idea how ignorant my teenagers are in therapy sessions where they have no idea what a freaking coat costs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's harsh reality when you think about even the concept of taxes. About a year ago, it was so funny because it was time for, they're going to get money for something. We were taking a trip. And I said, well, it's $50, but, hey, taxes. So it's actually $30. Like, what do you mean taxes?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, guess what?
Well, let's have a conversation.
Yeah. Now's the time to realize that, whatever amount it is, that ain't the amount.
Yeah. And here's, I should have had this actually right from the get-go as well on my list of things that are factors. I don't even think I had this on anywhere, and it occurs to me. It's super important, this thought. Actually, I do have it back in the notes. I remember now in the family sector, but I'm going to do it here. If you're ever questioning, this is, I guess, a little beyond midpoint break, dramatic pausing here, right? If you're ever questioning how much to filter, how much to let go and not filter, if you're ever questioning what should I share with the kid or what should I not share with the kid, this comes with the divorce section we'll jump to in family here in a minute. I've always given divorcing parents this idea, this guideline, this guidance, and I think it's really, really solid. Okay? First off, the kid has got to know that they can ask you questions, any question that comes to their mind. Now, before you blow that first A off, that is a really important factor, and it's really difficult to really get it conveyed to your kid and be consistent with your kid that they can really ask you any question possible. So endeavor to accomplish that goal. And then when you accomplish that goal and then reinforce that goal and revisit that goal, then you can allow the kids' questions to guide how much it is that you share. Because they will tell you what their developmental level and what their maturity level is by the questions that they're asking. This is huge. So A, they've got to be able to know they can ask questions. B, then you let their questions guide the depths of what you share. Now, there's a little bit of a subset here. Kids, especially younger, will ask questions that they're really not caring about the substance of their question. They're caring about the underlying question. So quick example. My brain's a little busy right now, so I'm not going to use my standard example. You know what I mean by that, Matthew? You might need to help me out. So a kid might ask something. They don't really care about that answer, but what they really want to know is like what's underneath that. Dadgummit, nothing's. I'm totally blanking.
Is it because they don't know the question to ask, or they don't want to just dive completely in quite yet? So
both.
Test the waters a little bit?
A lot of that, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, they want to know, okay, well, so in a divorce situation, when am I going to go see mom, and why do I have only Wednesdays there? What they really want to know is, am I going to be able to have a relationship with my mom because she moved out? That's what they're really kind of getting at. And they're asking about just Wednesday and the limits that we have. Okay, so there's a question, and we can answer the question, but we also have to look at what's underneath that question to guide how much we want to really share. And here's the good news: that's confusing, and you're going to miss it. No doubt you're going to miss it, but have no fear because it's going to come back up. You will get more questions if you're not answering the question underneath. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does.
This is really important. Just to repeat it again, kids got to know they can ask any question they want. B, you're going to let them guide the kid guide you with the questions that they ask on how much to share, how much to filter, and whatnot. Make sense?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent guidepost for all of this that we're talking about.
And I have never thought that before.
Yeah, is that a new thought?
That concept of it's important that the child understands and feels comfortable asking anything under the sun that they would want to ask. If it's in their mind, it's a fair game. I've never thought about it that way before.
Yep. It's a hard standard to get to because kids are worried. They don't want to upset you. You know, you're their God, and they don't want to make you mad or whatever. But if we can get there, we're going to be able to have awesome conversations about drugs, about sexual activity, about budgeting. Get this. How about back to finances? About retirement. Super proud. My older kids actually already got a retirement account. Right?
Excellent.
Because we talked about the finances and what he's doing with it. And I'm
how
so
old
jealous
is he?
of how much he can sock in there, Matthew.
No doubt. Yeah. Look at what it would be after 40 years, 50 years of sitting there, too.
Comes right from Dave Ramsey, to be honest with you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it
That's
comes
great.
right from Dave
How
Ramsey
old is he?
stuff. He's 20. Yeah, he's 20. He's
Talk
got
about ahead of the curve.
way. And he knows it.
He may retire before you.
It's his plan. That is his plan. Whether that'll come to fruition, we'll see. But that's what he wants.
Yeah.
Conflict
Good
is
deal.
another one that I want to let's go back to. Then in a really look, we fight in our households. If you say you don't, I'm gonna highly question you and doubt that. We fight. We have battles. We raise our voice. Sometimes we say things we didn't look back on. Cringe moments are normal. Can I say that? That might be a quote, Neil. Cringe moments are normal. Okay? So the reality here is they will see the conflicts, and we're going to try to filter them. You want to do some of the things you would think of. Don't throw down, knock out, drag out fights in the living room when kids are all around. You want to try to mitigate that a little bit. But what I really want to focus on with conflicts is to get you thinking about, don't filter out the apologies. Why we do that with our kids, I don't understand. We don't want to revisit anything. We don't want to see the makeup. We don't let them see, the reunification component when we're in conflict. Does that make sense to you, Matthew? I don't know.
Why is that we would do that?
I don't
What
know.
caused us to do that?
Because we don't want to revisit things. We don't want to make them think we're not happy with each other or whatever. Like, yo, you need to apologize, man. Make it an ordeal. Like, that's an awesome thing to model and teach. You don't have to filter that. Mm-hmm. And I'll go even a step further when it comes to conflict. As a matter of fact, if you're listening today, in the next week, if that's too much, in the next month, I want you to find a way to apologize, something to apologize to your kid about. How about that? Why do parents not feel that they can apologize to their kids? And they were afraid to do that. Apology is essential. You ever apologize to your kid, if I can ask? I don't know if that's too much to push. You remember? It's weird, isn't it?
I wouldn't say it's my first tendency to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm certain I have. There's nothing specific that comes to mind right now. I'm not scared to. Hey, I mess up like everybody else does.
Absolutely.
But I guess I just have that thing of being the dad. I don't want to let them down. So, gosh, I hate even the thought of doing something wrong that I have to apologize for bothers me.
Yeah.
And maybe that's every parent, maybe not. But
I think that's all of us. And maybe the answer to your question, why would we not do that? There you may have something.
Because we don't want to have that moment of vulnerability where we come across as anything less than, I'm the
on point.
Good way to describe it.
Yeah. So within the next week, if you're listening, you got a little listener challenge. Let's see how you do, man. Find a moment, find a reason to get an apology delivered to your son or daughter. And I don't care if they're 30 years old, by the way. You're still modeling that. Mama's always mama. Didn't you hear that?
Oh yeah.
Find a way. Find something. As you know, I'm pretty verbal, and I sometimes use too much verbal, and I get too loud with my kids. It's embarrassing, and I hate to think that, but it's true. And I've more than once gone back and said, "Hey, Adam, buddy, I'm sorry. I got really mad and hot with that man, and I didn't need to get as loud with that one. So, we'll look at connecting better on that. But, dude, you really know you need to pick up the candy wrappers.
Yeah. Cleaned my car out today, and there's candy wrappers everywhere.
Everywhere. You too?
Oh.
Maddening.
My car's
kids.
a trash can.
It's maddening children. Their social life. How do we filter and what do we filter out of their social life? Let's do the same thing. Picking friends or banning friends. Activities and questioning them about them. Privacy with a room. Dating privileges. First, here's a little tip. You do see the word privileges on dating, right? Sorry, but that's a tip in my brain, from my brain. Sleepovers. Religious beliefs. Checking phones. And then dealing with their social conflicts. Okay? These are some of the things that brainstormed interesting in my brain about, like, how much do you filter these things out? Mm-hmm. How much can you filter these things out? And how do you really go about doing that? Mm-hmm. Any of those stick out in your brain?
The checking of the phones is kind of interesting. I mean, my oldest is 12, and he doesn't have a phone, but he's got Xbox. He's got a laptop.
Pause right there. Let me just say, I want to put that in this episode. Mm-hmm. I said this with the social media. This is unrealistic. Mm-hmm. But as long as you can hold out on the smartphones for your kids, do so. Mm-hmm. Seriously. Mm-hmm. I wish I would have had the smarts to hold them out till high school. Mm-hmm. I did not. And you're going to go through lots of resistance in middle school on the phones. But if I knew what I knew now then, I would hold off as long as possible. That's just, take it for what it's worth. Listen to the social media with kids, and you'll see a little bit more depthiness as to why. But go ahead.
Well, Sorry. We definitely hear it. Hey, Daddy, I'd love to have a phone. Can I have your old phone? Gosh, I hear that a lot, that type of stuff. But it's not even been an option. Susan and I have not even considered it at this age.
Yeah,
absolutely not. It's
a little young.
It's not. Oh, we consider it very young. I mean, I want to. With him being 12, we're probably getting close.
Oh,
The reality of it is, because I don't want too much to hit at one time.
You've said that before.
And I know 16.
Interesting thought.
16. Now we deal with the whole driving, and you've got the keys, and you go wherever you want.
Yeah.
So that's not the time to hit them with a cell phone too.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So maybe
ease them into the reality.
14,
of the world.
15,
mm-hmm.
And then we can fight that battle, and then the car battle, and then the college battle. And we space it out a little bit.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hit all at one time.
It's an interesting strategy. Is it the right strategy? I don't know. Is it the wrong strategy? I don't know. I want to pepper that in again, man. Don't think you're doing something wrong if your 5-year-old has a cell phone. I'm right? We got to be careful about that when we're parent guilting people. But I'll say it again, hold off as long as possible.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would disagree with the 5-year-old piece of it. I mean, you'd be the expert, but I would. If you've got a child that's 5 years old and you've given them a phone, that's
here's the thing.
Choice.
They're literally now, Matthew, potty training kids with iPads and stuff on the potty. They have a stand on a potty. I saw this for real. They have a stand for a phone or a iPad on the potty toilet.
Next, it'll be they come out of the womb and they're crying. Oh, let's give them an iPad. I mean, it's a little excessive. Which
can be. What else do I want to comment about? Oh, picking and banning friends, I think, is a difficult one. Mm-hmm. You have more control as a parent when they're little, but man,
in every regard.
Yeah, in every regard.
In every regard. I mean, not just the friends.
Yeah.
But the tablet time, if that's what it is, the screen time, where they go, who they talk to, what they get exposed to. Yeah, that's one of the harsh realities. Is that the older they get, the less control you have. And
Understand.
It turns into more of an advising role.
Yeah,
as they age.
That's a good word. That's a good word. As the kids get older, you're more of an advisor. I love it. I love that a lot. You have to be careful about filtering out too much with things in the kids' social life. I'm not saying I'm parenting out of fear or suggesting that, but you have great potential of developing massive resentments that gets in your way of teaching life lessons. Because remember, that's our goal, right? To teach life lessons. That's all we really want to do. And if you just the kid's just resenting you constantly because you're limiting. Like, my gosh.
Well, that's part of my job.
It's too much. Yeah, but it can be too much.
Part of my job as a father is to limit.
Say again?
It's part of my job as a father is to limit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because you're not at a point of maturity that you can limit yourself. And somebody has to do it.
Absolutely.
So I'm the parent, and I will do it.
Guardrails are important.
They must be.
You put in guardrails because they make you feel safe, even though you rebuke the guardrail. I have a whole metaphor with that. I don't have time. But it's crucial.
But keep in mind, the guardrail's not where the danger is. The danger's over here. The guardrail's to keep you away from the danger.
Absolutely.
So,
it's a good piece of the metaphor.
Whatever it is.
I haven't used that piece of it before. But limiting too much is a concern. So that we're trying to find that balancing act is my main point here.
It probably depends on the family.
Well, it depends on a lot of things.
The child. A lot of factors to consider.
All right. What is too much? I warned you in the beginning of the show. I can't give you an exact. There's a lot of gray in this. But there's so many helicopter parents out there. People love that phrase. And people know helicopter parents. Do you know how many parents have pointed out their own helicoptering?
And they just can't stop themselves. I know I do it, but I can't stop it.
Exactly. Look.
Be it the fear, the whatever.
Guilt and shame are the big ones, yeah. I literally, for the very first time, heard somebody call themselves in a therapy session a helicopter parent. I was shocked, about fell out on the floor. Really. It was refreshing.
Self-diagnosed?
Yeah, it was refreshing. Insight about self. I mean, it was important.
So we're ahead of the game. You've already diagnosed it. We've identified the problem. now we get to deal with
it. Dating privileges, when to start sleepovers. A lot of those things are kind of bleeding in together. Religious beliefs are interesting, right? Especially with your teens. Question, does your teen have the emotional space to explore through grace, forgiveness, their own beliefs in religion? How difficult can that be sometimes? That filtration, that sheltering that we want to do to protect, if they don't have the way to explore. Unfortunately, I tell people very openly I'm from a Christian belief, and I know that I've heard it spoke about in many a sermons. We lose Christian teenagers. They're gone. They're out to lunch. They leave the church. Their home church is abandoned, and that's a very, very common statistical thing. I wonder if that's because we're not allowing space for them to, in a safe way, explore their views like that. Be careful about filtering too much there. What's right? What's enough? What's not enough? You have to get your own gauge, but we can filter that too much. Dealing with their own conflicts. Episode 13 is an excellent one to help you with that, because bullying is a real issue, issues with violence and abuse with kids that they're enduring. Episode 13 will help you with that, to give you some guidelines there. Let's get to the factors that I want to end with. And this gets to a lot of how. And I know that's an important thing that people want to know. How the heck do I do these things? Okay, listen and let's talk about it. Let's do the same thing. Thinking about with this, what do we model? I want you to think for a moment, like what are you modeling? So really important factors in how you're going to filter things is trust development with your kid. Do you trust them? Do they trust you, right? Reputation teaching. Teaching integrity. What does that even mean to you as a parent and what you're teaching to the kid? Obviously, developmental factors. I mentioned that before. And then disabilities. Are learning disabilities identified? Are mental health issues identified and recognized? Really important in how you're going to filter. Huge dramatic pause as well. Facilitate yourself before you try to engage. That's going to determine how you go about this. If you're not facilitated, holy cow, I can camp out there on that one. I'm supposed to be just reading these, but I had to camp out there for just a second. You've got to facilitate yourself from, again, fear and the guilt and the anger that you just wells up into you. You got to facilitate that. Keeping up with the Joneses effect, as again, we're all really affected by that. Does that influence how you execute filters and whatnot? What do you think about these things? Decent list to get you thinking about the how-tos on filtering things?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind is like some of the other topics we've discussed. It feels as though we're scratching the surface. We could take all day, multiple days on this, and we could start bringing up some case studies and some specifics, things that we see in children these days. How is this affecting that? Dangers to look out for.
They're good conversations to have. That's why I love doing this show, and that's why these shows bleed together. Episode whatever 71 and episode 15, you know, they are carryovers because you're absolutely right.
But certain points, like the one you made that struck me about it's important for your child to understand that they can bring any question that comes to their mind. And I guess that's what I wanted, but I've never thought about it in that way.
We assume that they know that. Of course they know that.
I'm just I hope that they
absolutely.
But what can I do as a dad to make
difficult
sure
to approach? They
pull the questions out, or make sure that they ask a question. That's a dumb question, or discount certain categories, or we'll have to talk about that later. No, let's sit down and talk about it right now.
And that is I'm glad you brought that back up, because that is a really hard thing to engage. And I will make the statement that if you heard that and you already think that you're really already good at doing it, there's a reason why your kids are more comfortable talking to other kids than coming to you with questions, because it's a really hard standard to get to. It's a really hard standard to accomplish. So if you're out there and you think you've done a good job with that, reconsider that, because I'm going to say you probably haven't done a good enough job with that, simply because nobody can. And that's not a critical statement. That's to get you really thinking how important that is and how difficult it is. Look, we got to run out of here today, but I warned you at the beginning, there's no immediate answers here. If you were looking for immediate answers on do this and don't do that, you ain't coming to the right place when we're talking about parenting. But hopefully this gives you brains to be thinking about it rather than just reacting in the moment. Because one of the most important jobs you have in life is being a parent to your kids. I believe that's a true statement. Fair enough?
Very fair.
Matt, thanks for hanging out with us. I think that we may have a conflict next week, so we may lose you on one of the weeks for February, but we'll see you next time around.
Thank you for having me.
All right. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you around the bend as well.